Hey guys, welcome to Hope It Helps, and my guest on the show today is Mr. Craig Harriman. Craig, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Very good. It's good to be on the receiving end of the questions and asking the questions for a change.
Yeah, I was actually on one podcast recently. The episode hasn't come out yet, but it was such a different experience because the host, usually you want to like manage the conversation, but it's fun to sometimes just sit back and like answering questions and so on.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so it's awesome. So Craig, me and you met thanks to our good friend Tariq. He was actually here earlier, so yeah, we were talking about it, and he gave me some more insight into yourself and your background.
Nice.
But before we get into all the gym related stuff, why don't you give everyone a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
So I've been in the UAE for 17 years. I moved here when I was still in school, moved over with my family, left school, got straight into the fitness industry, and I've been in the fitness industry in the UAE now for 13 years. And that's all I've done, just fitness my whole life. We grew up on fitness, and it just kind of became the natural path for me to get into as a career. And then opened a gym that I'm currently running now is Base 3. We own a gym down in JLT, which is a strength and fitness, I can't say classes, a training sessions based program that we run out of JLT. Okay. And that's currently what I'm doing now.
Interesting. So you mentioned you grew up here for the last part of your life, and then you have always been passionate about fitness. Where does that come from? Is it your family has always been really sporty, or?
Yeah, it's my dad was in the military, and we literally grew up following him around the gym. So we'd be like little kids, like 10-year-old, following him around doing circuits in the garage and stuff. So we literally grew up on fitness. We used to go running with him on family holidays and stuff. So it was just been ingrained into us since we came. My brother's a personal trainer here. I own a gym here. My wife's, she didn't grow up with that, but it's just in our family. It's just always been something that we've always done.
Yeah.
And it became a thing for me. It became very satisfying and very rewarding to give that to other people. Like I just grew up on like how fast can I run, or how much weights can I lift, or how many pull-ups can you do, and just always the challenge of being involved in trying to push yourself with fitness. Yeah. And then it just turned into a very natural progression for me to get in for a career.
Sure. No, that makes perfect sense. So it's kind of like in your DNA from the early days. And so when you went to university, were you studying anything fitness related, or what did you do when you went to university?
I didn't go to uni, finished school, did my certificate in exercise science, which was just like a college course, and then did that, and then just got straight into working and opened the second ever Fitness First in the UAE back in like 2000. It must have been 6 or 7.
No way.
We were part of the team that opened that one. There was only one, so there weren't many gyms here. When we first got into training here, there was like nothing, man. There was a couple of Fitness First that just opened up, and the type of training that we do now, which is best described as CrossFit training, didn't exist.
Yeah,
there was no rings or bars or coaches or anything. We just kind of self-taught. And I did this. It took me a year to get my certificate in personal training, and within like literally 3 weeks of working in a gym, I learned more in those 3 weeks from hands-on experience than I did from the course itself. Yeah, man.
Yeah. And so did you want to always start as a coach? Was that always the progression that you wanted, or did you have other ideas once you started entering the industry?
So when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was join the military, just follow my dad's footsteps. I just wanted to join the Marines. And then when I turned 16, ironically, I failed the fitness test to get into the military. And there was more to it than that. I think it was like a psychological thing of I didn't actually want to be there. I was intimidated by the experience, whatever. So then I left, and I was 16. I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. So I came back to Dubai and had a couple weeks off where I just sulked and wondered what I was going to do with myself. And then my old man found this course, like, oh, well, why don't you look at getting to fitness? I was kind of, yeah, I don't know. So I did the course, like, loved it, loved the experience, loved learning about the anatomy and the physiology and all the kind of the basics and just getting into it. And then got my first job, and like I said, from there, it was just like, this is really fun. I get to hang out in the gym all day. I get to train pretty much whenever I want. And then that evolved into learning more about fitness, and then understanding, again, the satisfaction of how to help other people as well.
Sure. No, that makes perfect sense. But I want to come back to that point about trying to enter the military, and from a fitness perspective, could you give us just a little idea of what that kind of test looks like? Because it must be super intense.
So I literally fell at the first hurdle. So you go in, and if you can picture it, we were all like 16-year-old kids, and everyone's super nervous going in. And I got warned beforehand from multiple people said to me, is like, so what my dad did in the military, he was a PTI, a physical training instructor. Okay. So all the guys that were instructors taking these kids through the courses now were the kids that my dad took through these courses when they were kids.
Oh, wow.
So he's like, just warning you, it's going to be rough. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm fit, I can handle it. And then the first thing with all these like nervous kids, like in their ties, it's like the first job interview. And I was sitting in this room, there's like 30 guys within there. And this corporal, he points at me and said, you stand up. And I've not spoke to the guy yet, and he says, stand up. And so I stand up. He's like, me, corporal. He's like, yeah. And he goes, what's your name? I said, oh, Craig Harriman. He's like, I fucking you, sit down. And then after that, just the whole weekend, it's just like they were making an example of me. It's just like, your dad this, your dad would never do this, and da-da-da-da. And this made it really hard for me. They were just trying to break me.
Of course, yeah.
And I was fit enough. I could have done the test. And the test that I failed on was a 3-mile run, and there was a very strict time cap, and you had to have it done by like 21 minutes or something. So I was running. I missed the cutoff by 30 seconds.
Ooh.
And they said, you can stay and finish the weekend if you want, but you can't pass the course by the end. And for me, it was just like this massively devastating experience, because I'd put so much time training into it, and I'd been doing the training in the summer in Dubai, and I knew I could hit the times on the run, and I knew I was good. But on the day, just the pressure of being in that environment, I realized that I wanted to do this my whole life, but I never knew what it was I wanted to do. No. So when you go in there and you immerse yourself in this environment, and it's in the camp, and all these like soldiers are shouting at you and stuff like this, it's like, I don't want to do this. And I got to the run, and I at the time I didn't realize that's what it was, and I just went out on the run, and there was like a guy in front of me who was slow, and he was like tripping me, and I got all in my own head, and and anyway, just like failed on this run. And then afterwards, like years later, like reflect on it, I realized I didn't actually want to be there. It's just this thing that I grew up, and I never had a plan B, and it was my plan A was like, just go join the military, that's all I'm gonna do. And I just didn't enjoy it when I got there. Like I said, that was like a reflection after, like years later. I was just like, that was why. It wasn't because you were slow or because you were unfit. It was just like, you just didn't want it bad enough.
Probably if you did, you would have been able to like hit that run on that day.
Sure.
Yeah. I think and what I hate about hindsight, it's always 2020. Like when you look back, you figure out like, oh, that now I know why
exactly
that failed, or excuse me, that didn't work out, and so on.
And then looking at it now is the experiences I've had since then. Had I gone into the military, my life would be completely different now. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have the business that I own now. It's just, I'm much better off. I'm happier the way it worked out, for sure.
Yeah. No, you seem happier. You seem a lot happier the way it worked out. So I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I wanted to ask you, because fitness is a very general term, right? And I think everyone has a different perception or a different idea of what that means. So in your words, how would you describe fitness to someone? Let's say I'm a new guy. I'm like, I want to get fit. What does that mean?
So what we do, or what we believe our definition of fitness is movement, it's lifestyle, it's mindset, it's all the what's the word I'm looking for? All the holistic approaches to fitness, as well as the training we do in the gym is fairly difficult, but that's just an hour of your day. So we facilitate training, and we facilitate hard work, and we facilitate the opportunities for people to make progress with their fitness. But then outside of that as well is you've got to consider like, what's your sleep patterns like? What's your nutrition like? How are you de-stressing enough from work, and take all these other facts into consideration. And that's what we try and the message we try and relay with Base 3 is that, is we want to be like, a lot of gyms say it's the best hour of your day. Come in, like, have the best hour of your day there. We want to be the best thing about that person's life. We want to improve people's life by affecting them in other areas as well. And the fitness industry itself is this huge thing, and there's so many options. You've got different types of classes like personal training, running clubs, cycling, hiking, all these different things. And going to the gym's actually a very small piece of that. Like what we do, and the fitness industry, this huge circle, is, well, like if it's a pie chart, like a very small piece of that pie chart. And within that very small piece, the type of training we're one of like 1,000 gyms that do a very similar thing. So the training itself is a very small part of it, and it's not really unique. What we try and differentiate ourselves is the care and attention that we put into the other areas as well, making sure people, do you have goals? What are your goals? Are you achieving your goals? We want to make sure you're making the progress you want to be making as well, and not just come to the gym and do whatever we say. And we had this conversation with all our coaches before. It's like, why are we different? What's different from us and all the other gyms? It's like, we genuinely care. Like we have team meetings and we talk about, this person's not in the gym this week because he hurt his ankle, or this person we know is away for 2 weeks, and all these factors that we care about the rest of people's life as well. So that kind of doesn't answer your question entirely, but I just think for us is we want to look at fitness as a full picture, not just like that hour of gym going to the gym. And I think that's a very interesting point that you mentioned, because for me, for example, I've been training for the last few years, and I've been as consistent as I can be, going to the gym 4 times a week. But what you said really resonated with me, because it's all those other areas that I think
I've been either lacking or I'm not paying enough attention to, things like sleep, things like nutrition. And when you go to the gym and you put in a good workout, you feel like, I feel like I've done enough. But maybe at the beginning, when you're first starting, you'll see really big results. But when you've been consistent for some time, you start to realize that that's not gonna cut it anymore.
Yeah, we call them the newbie gains. When you're new to it, you start making massive progress towards the start.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you start, I guess, influencing people and helping them in the other areas? How do you, because like you said, the gym's a small part, so you can come into the gym, you can have your workout. So what do you do? What's the work you do outside of that training that you can start helping people be consistent in achieving the goals?
A lot of it's just conversations. It's asking people what it is you want, because most people will come to the gym with a goal, and a lot of gyms won't. If you're working one-on-one, you'd always expect the trainer to be like, what is it you're working towards? Why have you come here? How can we help you? But then with group fitness, it's kind of just turn up, here's your hour of training, see you tomorrow. Is having the conversations. So our sign up process is very important for us to have the conversations with people. Is it's like, well, what is it you're looking to achieve, or why is that important to you? Engage that, and then try and guide them on that way. Because if someone comes in and like, I really want to lose body fat, for example, cool, you're committed to doing 5 hours of training a week, you've fixed your diet, but then their sleep pattern's horrendous. That will be limiting from achieving their goals. And until you have that conversation, you're never going to understand, and they might not understand, because we'll have the conversation and be like, well, you're only having 3 hours sleep a night, you're probably going to not be able to hit that goal. Even if you train really hard and eat really well, you're probably going to still miss the target. And people don't know that all these other factors play such a big part in making progress in the gym. So just having the conversations, and then the other one is creating the accountability. Like if I ask you what limits you from being able to achieve, or what would you define success in your goals? Like when would we achieve that? And then you say, well, I would, when I've lost 10 kgs, that'll be me. I'll be happy. Cool. In order to do that for the next X amount of months, we need to do this, that, and that. And put that back on you, and you've got to do it, but I'm going to check in and make sure you're accountable. That's a great way to do it. Is people need accountability, and a lot of people are very self-motivated and can kind of have this goal and then be fixed on it, and they can make the progress themselves. But having someone there to guide you and check in, even if it's not been very drill side, it's just hey man, how's that going? Or knowing that you've got to check in with someone, just having the accountability will go a long way. Yeah.
So being able to, it sounds like from what you're saying, is creating as personable a relationship as possible with your clients to help ensure that they reach the success that they want to achieve. And because how a lot of times, let's say I came to the gym, me and you're working together, I want to lose 5 kilos. Fine. We put in a program, I lose those kilos. This is the thing that I find, I guess, more difficult or interesting, is I can achieve that goal, but now I've achieved that goal, how do I start ensuring that this is my new way of life? Do you understand what I mean? To keep that consistent, because you can achieve a goal and then in a month's time, with just losing all those habits, you can easily go back to where you started.
For sure. It's like when someone wins Olympic gold medal, the next day is you've had people athletes say before, it's the most depressing day of their life is the day afterwards, because they're I've got the goal, what now? And obviously losing 5 kg is not going to be as overwhelming as that, but I think you need to connect to why the goal is important. And you can have a goal, but that's kind of a small training objective. And all small goals are training objectives that are going to take you towards your bigger why.
Yes.
And then when someone understands their why, their reasons for committing to staying fit and healthy or staying in shape is so much more powerful. So the example for me is I used to train when I was young. I used to train because I wanted to post it on social media to show people that I'm a good coach, because if I can do this for myself, I can get really strong, or I can do this many reps of a certain movement, people are going to respect me as a coach and a trainer and will come and train with me.
Yeah.
And I realized, because then I'd have a bad training day and it's fine because I could just not post it. And it didn't happen, doesn't matter. And and then I had no motivation or no reason to go to the gym and work hard the next day.
Yeah.
And it was a very shallow motivation. And then I started working more with people. When I opened our gym, for me, my motivation for training became, I'm going to ask these people to work really hard and do things that are going to make them uncomfortable. And if I'm going to ask people to do that, I have to be able to show them that I'm doing and willing to do it myself. And then for me, when I realized that, it was very powerful motivation. So it doesn't matter for me whether my goal is to run this distance in this time, or lift this much weight, or commit to whatever program. Is if I say I'm going to do it and I'm going to ask other people to do it, then I'm going to have to prove myself and do it. And for me, that's a very powerful reason. So I think getting people to understand why they want that goal, and it could be something like, I want to lose body fat. Why do you want to lose body fat? And they might be not have much confident taking their shot off at the beach, or they may feel like it would improve their relationship with their spouse if they look better. And that's going to be a much more powerful reason if you can get someone to unlock that, to keep them focused on working towards the goals.
Yeah, I think what you said is so true about the why and the motivation for why you're doing this, why you're getting up, why you're going to the gym, why you're putting in all this work to get that. And because I think, like you said, it creates an emotional response, like an emotional motivation, and emotion is what I think drives all of us and then whatever goals that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So in your experience working with, you know, clients and so on, what seems to be the most challenging thing or the big thing that people tend to fail at the most? Because I think you can be consistent, but maybe is it developing that right mindset?
Yeah.
Is that I think that could be it.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. And again, what we said earlier about understanding the benefits of the outside stuff and putting as much importance on the outside stuff as the inside stuff is, I can't remember who there's like a famous coach who talks about it, and I will kill me when I remember later, but working out and then working in is working on your inside, your mindset and all that stuff outside the gym. So like we said, get enough sleep, eating enough food. And I think people who have hurdles and setbacks and don't commit to programs and don't commit to workout plans, it's because they're not seeing the progress. So then other areas, like say, if I'm not sleeping, I'm not going to be improving my performance. And then because they're not improving performance, they put it down to the gym, or they're not working out, or the program's not working. So they change to something else versus committing to the hard work and staying focused on the program and giving it enough time to see change and then improving these other areas of their life as well. Yeah. That'd probably be the biggest one. And I think a lot of that comes from, again, people not understanding is as fitness professionals, you know, well, this matters, this matters, this matters. Whereas if you're just going to the gym, like, well, I'm working out, why is it not working? And not taking all these other factors into consideration.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, the other factors seem to play a much bigger role than just, you know, being able to come to the gym and be consistent with all that training.
Yeah.
What was your, I guess, because you started out working as a personal trainer, you worked at that for a while. So was your motivation or was the dream to always build the gym, or how did all that come together?
Yeah, I got, I had a piece of paper, I think I've still got it, which I wrote on in 2010, is one of my goals was to own my own gym. And I still had it, and I found it when we opened the gym. I found this piece of paper. I'm pretty sure I've still got it. I always did want to own my own gym, and I think it comes from whenever I've worked in gyms previously, I've always been limited by like the hours of operation or the type of equipment, or there's always something that stops me from being able to train people the way I wanted to train people. So I'm like, what if I own my own space? I can do whatever I want in that space. And I've worked in great gyms before, but maybe like they didn't have access to this, like we couldn't run at certain times, or we couldn't do sled pushes, or the pull-up bar was too short or something. I'm like, well, if I think this is the right way to train, I'm going to create the right environment. And again, those are all physical examples, but then even just having creating my own space in terms of the environment of having people that want to train and want to work really hard in a very motivational and secure environment, a safe place for people to come and push themselves, is when I thought about opening a gym, that's what I really wanted to create. And that's why I envisioned, like, when I own my space, it's going to be a space that people are going to love and come and throw down and have a great time doing it. And I've always wanted to have that, and I still want to, like, I own a gym now, and when I retire, I want to retire and have my own gym which people can come and train at, and that's always the goal of me, just to have my own training space.
Yeah, so you wanted to create the gym so you could finally train people in the way that you envisioned was the best way for people to train.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And then Base 3 came about. Me and my wife were actually leaving. We met here, we got married here, we were here for a couple of years, decided to move to New Zealand. She's from New Zealand. And as we were packed up, literally put all of our belongings into a storage container ready to ship. And a couple of guys from the previous gym I was working at, they didn't believe that we were leaving. Like, yo, are you actually leaving? We're like, yeah, we're leaving. We're going to be gone in 3 months, da-da-da. And then they said, oh, what if we put some funds together and you stayed and open this opportunity? We like the way you train. We don't want you to go. We don't want to train with someone else. We could set up our own thing and you can stay and do it. So then raise some capital to open a gym, and that ended up becoming what we've got right now.
Oh, wow. That was a quick switch.
Yeah, and we were so focused and we were set. We were going to go back to New Zealand, open our own gym, like a small space. We were already looking at like things on like the equivalent of Property Finder in New Zealand and trying to find a spot for us. And then we decided to stay, and we're like, okay, we'll open a small facility. It'd be like a couple of years, and then we'll head on with our journey. And then now we're like on our 4th year now, and we ended up with a big facility, and we've got a big membership base, and it's just grown into this thing, which is great. And it's the stress of being a business owner and the buyer, obviously.
Yeah,
you've got to ride that wave.
Yeah, you definitely have to ride that wave. One thing that I realized during quarantine, and I spoke about this with another fitness coach on the podcast, was, you know how you could like either rent some weights, you know, from the gyms, just, you know, because you can't work out at the gym and stuff like that. So I was looking, I'm like, let me go buy some weights. And in my mind, I'm like, how expensive would it be to buy a 25 kilo plate of iron? In my mind, it didn't make like it was nothing. Then I was looking like there's some companies it's like 1,500 for like a 125 kilo plate.
It's crazy.
I'm like, what's going on? So what was your thinking behind, like, when you're opening the gym, the type of equipment you needed? How was that experience of actually opening that gym?
We were very fortunate. I've heard horror stories of people like being delayed 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And it's more not based on the actual physical setting up. It's more like licensing and held ups there. So we were very fortunate. We opened 3 months after the date we originally decided we were going to open. So that's not too much of a delay. I've heard people like, 8 months, 12 months. So we were very fortunate. The things that were hard, like the equipment, ordering the equipment and stuff wasn't the most expensive thing. The type of gym we've got is very free weight based and a lot of open space. So there's not too much equipment in there. That wasn't the hardest part to swallow. The hardest part to swallow was like all the small things they sting you with. So it's like, oh, you've got to go and do an acoustic test, and that's going to cost you 10,000 dirhams. I'm like, what's an acoustic test? It's, it tests vibrations in the building. I'm like, sure. Then these guys say, okay, now you've got to spend like 30,000 dirhams more on your flooring and stuff. But then it all comes from the governing body that says you have to do it. They happen to know a guy that does that service that you need, and they're the only person you can use. So it's just like the kind of monopoly of Dubai. That's the thing that gets you here. But in terms of like, I was surprised how much the price of equipment went up over lockdown, because it obviously became high demand.
Exactly.
So there was like dumbbells on Amazon for like 10 times the price they usually go for. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I just started thinking, because of the gyms that I've been to and that I go to, I'm like, how? And I look around now, the equipment, and I just see like dollar signs everywhere. Like, how much must all of this have cost?
Yeah. Well, we went kind of like, so anything big in terms of like pull-up rigs and stuff, we got manufactured here.
Nice.
And then a lot of the like kind of branded stuff that you would use, you can source. It wasn't difficult to set up to get the equipment.
Okay.
That wasn't too bad.
Okay. One thing that I was thinking about, I think with any business or particularly in the gym, is putting the right team together to make this successful. So how did you think about, because you mentioned that you was a couple of people that you were working with or like had worked with in the past, and they were the ones who were like, let's set up a gym together. Mm-hmm. So how did you go about building that team? What does that team look like now? Walk us through that.
Yeah, when you listen to like stories of people forming teams, is they always say the same things, like make sure it's a person you get along well with, make sure it's the right fit for the team or the right person for the job, versus finding someone who's got the right skills. You always want to hire good people. And we've always done that. We've always, like, whenever we've interviewed people or we've brought coaches into the team, they've always been a great fit for the team and got along really well and just felt like they were the right person for the job. And then as it goes, you understand that, or maybe they're the right person, but then their skill set's not what we need right now, and we need to evolve or move on. And we've had a higher turnover of coaches than we ever thought we would.
Okay.
And I think that just comes from us growing and developing. We're still a really young company and still finding our way and being like, well, this is something we used to really believe in, which isn't as important to us, or this isn't something we realized was so important to us. So then trying to evolve the team to a point where everyone is gelling and everyone's vibing with your values and everyone's on the same page is difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
And I can't remember who said it, and it was like, it's a 50-50 chance whether you get the right person for the job. And I'm sure that goes for all industries. It's like when you hire someone, it's just like they're either going to be a rock star and they're going to fit exactly with you, or it's going to be like, oh, this person's not quite right.
Yeah.
And then the whole like hire slow and make them jump through as many hoops as possible to make sure they're the right fit. You almost feel guilty doing it because you've got this great coach with a lot of potential, and you're like, oh, can you do this? And please send me this. And now you've got to do this, and you make them jump through all these hoops.
Yeah.
But then eventually you need to, right? Because if you're going to go through all the effort of bringing someone on and going through that process, you have to make sure they're the right fit for the team.
No, 100%. And in your gym, what does the interview process kind of look like? Are you looking for, like you said, I think personality is super important. Are they going to gel with the team? Because I think at the end of the day, you're people working with people. So you want to work with people that you like and that can get along. But also, I think particularly with fitness, and because it's the body, and, you know, injuries and training people in the right way, qualifications are also important. So walk us through what that interview process looks like, and what do you tend to what would you give more leeway to? Okay, you don't have all the qualifications I need, but you seem to be a really good person that can maybe develop them, or is it sometimes you need someone that's that specific?
I mean, there's the prerequisite qualifications. You have to have some qualification legally just to be insured to do the work.
Yeah.
So there's like the minimum requirement of like a PT level 1, which is just like entry level PT, just so they've got a basic understanding of movement. But that's really not important to us. Like, we don't care if you've got the right qualifications. It's your experience, excuse me, and then your people skills is far more important. And the last couple of coaches we've hired them because we've asked them what their strengths were, and they were like, "Oh, it's my people skills," and they're great coaches with a lot of potential. But it's just their ability to interact with people. Like I said, it's a person industry, so how well you can communicate with someone. And as I was saying earlier, is probably the most important thing for us is how we can have that good conversation with someone to make sure everyone understands what that person wants. Whereas you could be the most experienced coach of all the pieces of paper, but you may not be able to have a conversation. Or when we do group training, so to be able to stand in front of a room and command the respect of 15 people in a very loud environment is also very difficult. So you need to be quite a charismatic person.
Of course.
So definitely the people skills over the qualifications.
Yeah. So people skills tend to be the first thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, is you can teach someone the skills, but if that person's not the right fit for the team, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
And I find with training, and especially the environment we try to create, is one of our values is better every day, and having a growth mindset to always be willing to learn and being humble enough to know that you have to learn more, and trying to make sure everyone within the team is in a learning environment and contributing towards that learning environment, so we're all growing together. And that's not necessarily just fitness stuff either. That's like your own personal development and your own people skills, and trying to grow that way too.
Yeah, 100%. And I wrote that down, that better every damn day, because that's so there's a book that I read called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
By James
1%.
Clear. 1% every
Yeah.
day, and that's like my thing on LinkedIn. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, me and Greg think the same way. Because it's like you said, it's super important, not just from a professional and career perspective, it's also from a personal perspective, that you want to just improve every day and learn from others. So how has the gym, from day one till now, we're like 4 years later, you said, down the line now,
almost,
how has been like the evolution of the gym? What have been the biggest changes that you've seen? Is it how do you felt at the beginning? How do you see it now?
Yeah. I mean, everything you think is important, not everything, but most things you think are really important when you start, and you go through is like, we have got this process like down, we've done this, we know exactly how this is going to happen, didn't even matter, or you didn't even use that. Or all ideas you have at the start where it's like, we want to do this and we want to do this. They're great ideas, but you just realize that when you open up, is your time is pulled in so many different directions that things that you think would be really important, you kind of just have to dismiss and put to the wayside. Like, one thing we really wanted to do, and we're a very small team and we always have been, is have like printouts that we can give out monthly for like nutrition advice or tips on stretching or mobility work, and just have handouts that people can just take one and it's a read. And we thought, that would be a super easy thing to create every month. But then when you think about it, like, you've got the template, but someone's got to create all that information every month, and we're a very skeleton team. It's like, that became a thing that's a nice to have but not super important.
Yeah.
When we were opening, like, this was one of our main things that we were going to spend time on. So and then it becomes, now it's the importance of having procedures and policies in place. So if you onboard someone and you have all like a man, you can say, cool, go and read this, and then come back and we can start your onboarding.
Yeah.
We realize that's more important. And all the exciting stuff like writing programs for people and teaching classes, is we're actually pretty good at that. We don't need to put a lot of time and effort into nurturing that. We're terrible business owners because we come from a fitness background. And that was the thing when these guys approached me to open the gym. I was like, I can do that for sure. And we had this whole plan. And then I realized that I got offered this position, or the opportunity that I've got now, because they enjoyed my coaching style or they appreciated me as their coach. But then I've been expected to like run payroll and get people's insurance and all this stuff and learning all these things. And prior to opening the gym, I had a really good couple of years because I was just a coach at a gym. So I spent a lot of time growing as a coach and learning and studying, and spent a ton of money upskilling myself. In the last 3 years, I haven't done any of that upskilling there. But then my business vocabulary is huge now because I'm like balancing P&Ls and all this mad stuff, which I never thought I'd be doing. But then that's kind of become the thing that we realize the importance of this. And we always want to create an environment which is motivating and inspiring and safe for people to come and train. And you realize that you can do that regardless of who's in the gym. Like, we open the gym with like 50, we sold out, we gave 50 original like memberships away to the first 50 people that signed up, like honorary members for life, and we filled that out like immediately. We had such a great following from the start, and a lot of those people aren't around right now, but that doesn't change who we are. So we opened the gym and our values were this, and they've evolved, but they're pretty similar. But there's a completely different set of people in the gym now. Well, so like 50% different set of people in the gym now, because Dubai is super transient.
Yeah.
But from day one, what we wanted to do to now, it's still the same. Like the plan's still the same. Create a safe training environment for people to work hard and have a good time.
Yeah. So the core identity of what you guys wanted to create is still there, but now it's just like you said, Dubai is quite transient.
Yeah.
So different people come in and out, and there's so many gyms around here. It's ridiculous. Like every year, I don't know, you probably know the numbers, but
Yeah.
I hear about like 10, 20 new gyms that open every year. And
Oh,
I'm
at
like,
least.
where's the space
Yeah.
for all this?
It did. There was a time when we opened, I think we got in there just at the right time, because I think about a year afterwards, the type of training we do, that specific CrossFit gyms, that was the highest there's ever been, and then a bunch of those have shut down in the last couple of years. But just after we opened, the market did get very saturated. And I think it's gotten to a point now where I think COVID pushed a lot of people out, but I think it's gotten to the point where it's kind of like cleaned out a lot of the people that, especially here, is running a gym in like the US, for example, is you can set it, you can pay a very cheap rate, you can get equipment pretty cheap, you can run it with, I'm part of forums with gyms in the States where they turn profit really easily, but their overheads are so low because, or even in places like the UK and New Zealand where I know gym owners, the overheads are nothing compared to what you pay for here. You have to run it like a corporation here because your overheads are so high. And then for us, it's about running a business versus I don't get to enjoy the coaching side of it and interacting with people as much as I thought I was going to when I started it. So that's kind of like when I retire and have my own small gym in New Zealand, I don't have to worry about making all the money to be able to keep the lights on. It's more just that I can enjoy the training side of it.
Yeah, it sounds like you prefer the coaching side more than like the business
100%,
yeah,
for sure. And then there's people will say, some people should just be coaches and stay coaches, and everyone wants to go and own a gym because it's the next progression. And I'm exactly that type of person. I was like, yeah, I want to do my own training in this space. I'm going to open my own gym. And it's like, well, now I have to do all the business stuff, whereas I never wanted to do business stuff. I love the coaching. I love being on the floor, coaching, helping people, writing programming, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Would you prefer if there was someone that could just run it like as the CEO, or more from like the strategic side,
100%.
and then you just like manage the entire what the gym is and how it works, and the coaching and the training?
Do totally.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And I'm sure there's people like that would be doing stuff, and it takes me so long to do all this stuff, and I'm not even very good at it. Whereas all my strengths and my experience and my passion is coaching and writing programming and the kind of like business and development side of that, not just delivering the coaching, but understanding how to write scalable programming, which is revenue generating. But I spend a lot of my time working on business stuff, which is not a strength of mine.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you have 24 hours in a day. Your time's going to be split and pulled in so many different ways, especially if you're the business owner of the gym, but you love the coaching side as well. I can imagine that it does take away from the time that you'd like to be spending doing those other things. In terms of, because what I've learned in my experience speaking to coaches and speaking to people in the fitness industry and athletes, training is such a personal thing. Like each person has their own needs, has their own type of body type. They have to eat a certain way. So how do you, because you said something interesting about scalable programs. So how do you create a scalable program that is super customizable to each individual?
So we run group sessions and we have a group program, and I definitely do not believe that one program is the right fit for everybody. So if you have a room of 10 people, what the programming is for that day will probably be right for maybe 20% of the group. So like 2 people in that group, this is the program they need to achieve their goals for the day. So what we try and create with the group program is enough variance with enough repeatability to prove that it's working, to cater to enough people's needs whilst being very broad, general and inclusive. So enough doses of strength training, enough doses of energy system training like cardio aerobic work, enough doses of core work and accessory work to make sure everybody's getting kind of like the bare minimum of what everybody would need across this week or 2 week span.
Sure. And
we plot all that into 8-week cycles, which have a slightly different theme. So for this week, there's going to be a slight bias towards doing more strength work, for example, or there's going to be a slight bias towards doing more cardio work. And that way we're still ticking enough boxes that it caters to a mass group.
Majority, yeah.
But then again, this is a group service, and if you look at the value of a group service is you're always going to pay less for a group service. So you're trying to offer this really high value product in the program that ticks enough boxes, but make it more affordable by turning it into a group model.
I see. Okay.
I think the most effective way to train is definitely working one-on-one. So we do group classes, but then we also do individual training or personal training. An individual program would be, you're going to come into the gym and I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do based on what your goals are, but also your strengths and weaknesses. So we'll do an assessment and be like, cool, you're lacking here, you're strong here, we need to work more on this, and this is what your program looks like.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that's the more appropriate way to go. A bespoke program based on what you're trying to achieve would be far more successful than a group program.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is, are you motivated enough to do it on your own? Because if you turn up and you go, I'm going to book in for the 6 o'clock session and there's going to be 10 other people there pushing as hard as me and my friends are there, I'm going to go and have fun doing that. Or I've got to stand in the corner because I know that's the thing that's going to be best for me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have the motivation to get up and come and do it on my own. So I think that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
In your gym, is it more? Do you find there's more people that come for the individual train individually, or is it a big portion of it is the group classes?
Mostly really? Group, yeah. And then so we have 8 classes a day, up to 15 people per class, and I'd say there's probably maybe less than 10 people that do individual. Maybe less than 20 people that do individual stuff. So really? Definitely the majority of it is for the group training.
Why do you think the majority of people prefer group training? Because me personally, when I go to the gym, I like to go, put my headphones on, not speak to anyone, do my thing, and get out. But I know in Dubai, and I don't know if globally, you definitely would know more, but group classes have this thing about them that seems to attract a lot of people. And I've never understood why. One of the coaches said it's because some people see it as a social experience, which I thought that's interesting, but also that people sometimes don't know what to do themselves. So like, I'll come to a class, this guy will tell me exactly what to do, and I'll get a good workout. What do you think?
I think it is the social experience. I definitely think what one of our pillars, so base 3, the 3, and if you see our logo, it's got a triangle and it's an equilateral triangle, and all points are there's 3 points of a triangle. So the 3, I'm trying to visualize it now. Okay.
I might have it open.
And then
I had it open here somewhere.
Our 3 things were performance, which is training in the gym, lifestyle, which is all the other factors outside the gym, and then community. I know what it looks like. I was just hoping other people could see.
No, so other people can see it.
There you go. So then the 3 points were performance, lifestyle, and community, and these represent training, which is the performance, lifestyle, which is the sleep, nutrition stuff, and community, which is the social engagement. And then for us is we've always strived to, and we've been commended many times for having a strong community, and it's people want to come in because they make friends in the gym, or they want to push against people in the gym, or there's it's motivating training next to someone who's going to work as hard as they are, and that'll motivate you to train a little bit harder. And again, it's that accountability. If you don't turn up and the next day your friends are like, where were you yesterday, why didn't you come and train? Versus if you're going to the gym on your own and doing it by yourself, is you don't have that. So you've got to be very disciplined to do it. And like I said, doing an individual program is far more effective for your training, but you have to be very disciplined, and not everybody is. So it's kind of like that fun social thing, but also having the motivation to be able to go and do it on your own. Yeah,
no, for sure. I wanted to come back to, you mentioned, because you guys started the CrossFit thing quite early before, kind of CrossFit exploded like all over the UAE.
Yeah.
So why has CrossFit become such a hot topic, like with gyms and stuff? I've never personally understood it, because it seems like it's a lot of weights, but it's fast and whatever. I don't know. I feel like, but this is just my perception of it, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I just feel it's more hectic than it needs to be. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean?
And I agree. And there's a lot of different iterations of CrossFit, and there's if you go to, we are a CrossFit licensed affiliate, but we don't necessarily do CrossFit in our programming and in our group classes. We create a very similar system, but we have different priorities the definition of CrossFit is functional movements, constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity across broad time and modal domains, which is the definition of CrossFit. So by definition, if you're doing anything that has different types of movements and you're keeping varied training, you're doing it with some intensity, which is loaded, or doing something quickly, and then you're technically doing CrossFit. What separates a lot of gyms is the quality of the coaching and the mentality behind the coaching. CrossFit gets a really bad rap sometimes because it's like, just go as hard as you can and fast as you can and slam your head into a wall.
Exactly.
Which is not, it is wrong, but it's not not what CrossFit wanted to be. But then if you look at the original programming of when CrossFit designed, it wasn't like that. It was like maybe you're just going to do squats today, just heavy back squats, or you're just going to go for a run. Or it might be something where you're doing like loads of pull-ups and burpees and doing something really quick and really hectic. So it was designed to be different. Intensity can be loaded, it can be doing something fast, it can be doing something long. So I think it's just been, people get hold of it and they want to do like crazy stuff all the time, and we do crazy stuff in the gym. We have a session on a Friday and we were trying to push it as the hardest workout in Dubai.
Okay.
But then we'll do 2 days a week where we do really easy training to offset that, because it's all about balance. And if you try and go hard every day and be really hectic or overly hectic, like you said, you're going to end up injuring yourself.
Exactly.
And and one of our values is longevity. If you get hurt, you're not training, you can't train for as long, you're not going to make the progress you want to make in the gym. So we try and approach things with a little bit more balance. Safety is important to us. Moving really well. We've got very qualified or very experienced coaches that have really high expectations when it comes to movement. So making sure people are squatting, it's like, don't just force people to squat below parallel if they're not moving correctly. Make sure they're bracing their core, make sure they're sitting back and down, make sure their weight's distributed correctly through their feet, make sure they're engaging the right muscles, rather than just going, yes, you're going below parallel, that's a good rep. Trying to get our coaches to understand and get them to teach the members what good movement is, to make sure before they start going really fast or really heavy that they're moving correctly, and that's more important.
Exactly. And something you picked on, which is the technique of how to move correctly. So I recently had a friend of mine who's an athlete, and he runs with the national team for the UAE.
Nice.
And he was telling me how important technique is, and how I didn't know. I thought technique was just to get better, but he's also like to reduce injuries, introduce all this kind of things. And I recently, I think, messed up my back in the gym as well. So why are the fundamentals always the most important things to get right? Is it because of those things, or is it just so you can also not just injury, but also push yourself as much as you can?
Yeah, well, it's all those things, definitely. I mean, injury prevention is probably the most important one. If you have a faulty movement pattern, even with running, if you're when you run, you should be running in a certain way, and let's say each foot should pass through a certain path. If there's a weird deviation from that, you're adding extra movements and using movement or muscles to do that movement that you shouldn't be using, and that will create overuse injuries. Or if you're doing squats and you haven't got part of your body's not strong enough to hold you in that position, and you default to a different movement or a different movement pattern, that's going to create injuries, because over time you're going to create a stiffness or a tightness where there shouldn't be a stiffness or a tightness. So it's definitely that as well. I think there is an element of efficiency. So if I have really horrible running technique, it's going to be more tiring, because it's going to become more taxing, because I have to put more effort into cover more range of motion than I need to. So if I was going to like run 5K of really horrible technique, or I was going to run 5K of really smooth, easy technique, I'd be more efficient, and that would allow me to improve my performance more, because I'm not spending energy wasting it into bad movement patterns. I'm just being efficient. So definitely is a performance element to technique as well.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that I was thinking about is it important to consistently be changing up your workout? So for me, for example, I've been on the same program for about 3 years, and in my mind I was like, okay, as long as I'm improving, as long as I'm getting stronger, this seems to be working for me. But I also hate cardio with a burning passion. But I know, and I've been learning, and recently I'm starting to understand how important that is, because in my mind I'm like, oh, I'm lifting a weight. Why? Cardio is not going to help me lift this weight, but if I'm trying to make a run, it's definitely going to help me. So what's your, I guess, mentality or mindset behind like all that kind of stuff, like cardio and changing workouts and all that kind of stuff?
I guess it depends on the goal, because so one of the principles of CrossFit is constantly varied, and from like an untrained eye, it would look random, like, oh, why are you doing this today? That has nothing to do with what you did yesterday. And the principle behind it is the body wouldn't adapt if you did the same thing over again. You're just going to adapt to that movement. You're not going to make physiological changes. You're not going to get fitter. You just got better at that exercise. So, for example, if I did 60 kilo bench presses every day, I get really good at 60 kilo bench presses. That doesn't necessarily mean I got stronger. Whereas if I did like bench presses and flies and push-ups and use different exercises, I would get stronger across a broader range of movements, and I would likely improve my 60 kilo bench press. Whereas if I just stuck to the same movement, I'm just going to get better at that movement.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, on the flip side of that, there is definitely something to be said for repeating like the thing you want to improve more frequently. So, for example, if I'm going to run a marathon, if I don't do any running, I'm not going to get better at running a marathon. So there is something to be said for doing what you want to get better over and over again. And I've worked with people before, and I actually listened to the same story on a podcast yesterday about how if you were trying to improve one certain area of your fitness, let's say it's like I want to get better at back squats. If I'm trying to fix the back squats, in order to fix the back squats, I just tried like every single thing all the time and constantly trying to try different things because it's not working. So you try something else, and then all of a sudden it fixes your back squat. You don't know what fixes the back squat. Versus if it's like, I'm going to keep one thing the same, I'm just going to try, maybe I'm going to vary one part of it, but the principle or the fundamental of the program is going to remain the same. Like, so I'm always going to do back squats, and I'm going to do different accessory work to make sure my back squat gets better. You can probably say doing more back squats got you better at back squats.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some benefit to some repetition in the program.
Yeah. So it's repetition, but with some variation to understand what's the thing that's going to make you get that extra improvement, the extra thing. But something said that's super interesting, that if I just did 60 kilo bench presses, which is what I do, ironically, you're not going to get stronger. And I'm like, what? How does that make sense? I didn't know that I'd have to incorporate like other different maybe types of exercises that are going to benefit me on that. I thought if I just keep doing this over time, it'll get stronger. So I thought that was really interesting that you have to vary it up in that way.
Yeah. And then if you look at the best bench presses in the world, it'd be powerlifters.
Yeah.
And they bench press. They just bench press for their powerlifting, but they have like 15 different variations of bench press. They do like to boards with bands, with chains, and there's a lot of different variations. So it's still the same movement, but there's still some variance there to make sure they're adapting. Yeah. Because if you only did the same bench press the whole time and no variations, you'd just get better at that bench press, and then your ceiling for growth would be smaller.
Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting. I had no idea that you had to vary it up in that way.
Yeah, man.
Something to keep in mind. Definitely got to know that. I wanted to ask you about since you've been in the industry, in the fitness industry here for so long, and as you know, it's like there's gyms everywhere, there's coaches everywhere, there's all this kind of stuff. What's your view on the industry in the UAE? What are your thoughts about it?
It's definitely getting better. I think the quality of qualifications you can do here for a start there's way more offerings than there ever has been. Like the amount of fitness professionals that come into the country and access to professionals like you have here we've never experienced anything like this. Like you can do all sorts of seminars now with really, really intelligent coaches. I think the increase in the demand because there have been so many gyms, and again, this probably would have been like maybe 5 years ago, maybe even longer. There was a lot of people that were fit and knew how to work out that didn't want to work corporate jobs anymore, or a recession hit and they lost their job, and they're, well, I'm fit, I can make some quick cash if I just start training people on the side. So they get their a real simple PT cert, and all of a sudden they're coaches now. And then we all get painted with the same brush. Like, I've been doing this for 13 years and I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on my education and experience and hours of practicing how to train people safely, and this guy's been doing it for 2 minutes and he paid like 1,000 dirhams for his certificate, and now we're both coaches. Yeah. So it used to be a lot like that, and I think it's gotten better. I think it's almost like those guys didn't survive, and I think lockdown flushed a lot of them out, the whole COVID scenario, and I think the more experience, or the better coaches, for lack of a better word, will survive, and the cream will rise to the top, if you like, because people will slowly start to become more educated and understand that this guy doesn't actually know anything. And it really grates me, and I shouldn't bitch about this, but when you see people that have like huge followings on social media, sure, and they look the part, and all their branding's awesome, and then you see their clients move, or you see the way they move, it's just like, you move horribly, and it may look like, they're just doing a squat, what's wrong, but then their feet are turning in, their knees are all over the place, they've got really poor movement patterns, and it's just like, you clearly don't know what you're doing, but yet people are listening to you. And to me, it's annoying because it's dangerous, and I care if that, or if someone's going to go and pay you money to train with you, they're going to get hurt, then it's a disservice. And I feel like 100%. There's definitely a lot of those around still, probably less than there was, but I think there's better access to more education here, and there's more experience and more qualified coaches here than there ever has been.
Really?
So the industry is definitely on the rise.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think Dubai was just kind of late to the party. I think if you look at like LA and Sydney are probably the pioneering cities in terms of fitness, like innovation. Dubai has quickly caught up, like in typical UAE fashion, has quickly caught up to that. And like I said, there's been some really interesting seminars that I've attended here of people that you wouldn't get in most places in the world.
Yeah. I feel everyone in the fitness community here kind of knows each other. Was that true?
It's very tight.
Yeah,
it's very tight.
Is it large? Is it small?
It's large, but I think it's a big. There's a lot of people and there's a lot of gyms and there's a lot of coaches, but I think it's a very small community.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're like 1 degree of separation from anybody here. Yeah, I know of people that I've never met that I could go and speak to tomorrow just because I know they're in the same circle, even though I've never spoke to them. Yeah. I mean, look at us. This came through Tarek, that came through Athlete, exactly. That from Mad Nutrition. Sorry, so it's like you can definitely. And one thing is I really appreciate being here in the fitness industry is I've had like a gymnastics coach, a weightlifting coach, a nutrition coach, all these different things. I've got friends that are physios. I've got friends that do all sorts. I've got friends that are sleep doctors. I've got all these connections that I've made here because it's such a melting pot that if I was just in like my hometown in the UK, I'd probably maybe know like one physio. So being here has become such a hub for fitness and a global hub that there is that melting pot of a lot of different experts that you do have access to. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think one thing about, like you said, it is a melting pot and you do have access to quite a lot of people in different areas of talent and expertise and so on, like you said correctly, like physio, sleep doctors, all that kind of stuff. But one thing also about Dubai is, like you said, it's a large community, but it's also quite small. And I think, especially when in my mind as a coach, like your credibility is super important.
Yeah.
Especially in those kind of circles, because if you're in that industry, you need to be a credible source. Otherwise, people who know, like yourself, who understand what a real coach is and what coaching is, are gonna be able to sniff you out pretty quickly. Yeah. I
definitely think so. And I'd like to see that happen more, and I'd like to see customers be more aware of, like, I feel like people come to our gym who have been at other gyms and they're doing like squats, for example. I'm like, and they're, I've done this at this gym for 2 years, and they come in and they've got really bad movement patterns, or like they're like borderline, it's dangerous to watch them move, and we're like, what are you doing? And whereas people from our gym, I'm sure if they went to another gym, they'd be like, oh, you move really well, because we have very high movement standards. And obviously there's the anomalies where some people just move really poorly because of their mechanics, whatever. But for the most part, is people should be able to identify what is good quality training, and you can identify coaches' experience or at least their kind of integrity by how well looking at their members move. If you turn up at the gym and everyone looks like they're in pain all the time and looks really uncomfortable moving, then the coach probably isn't taking great care of that group.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. So you're a coach, and you have all the experience, so you could sniff out, or you could tell who's a good coach, who's a bad coach, right? So there's 2 questions. So first, what makes a good coach in your words? What do you define as a good coach?
Just care.
Care.
You've just got to give a shit. Like if you care, you'll invest more time. You'd like, especially when you're doing group stuff, it's really easy if you've taught like 4 hours in a row and your 4th hour, someone isn't doing something 100% correct, just to be like, it's good enough and move on because you don't care enough. Whereas like all of our coaches were like, nope, stop, fix that, like try a little bit harder, you can do better than that, and push to get more out of people. And that just shows that if you've got coaches that'll do that, they'll probably follow up with you if they haven't seen you for a week. They'll probably check in and make sure you're sleeping and your food's on point, and you're probably going to make better progress. You'll be safer and you'll be able to train for longer and be healthier. So I definitely just think it's that coaches that care. And it's hard to know when you're getting into a relationship with a coach if they care, but that's what I would say makes a good coach, someone who genuinely cares about the people they're working with.
Okay, so now let's flip it and look at it from a client's perspective, because like you said, there's coaches everywhere, and they say like he'll have a PT1 certification, but you've invested thousands of dollars and you have a much higher level of certification, but I'm a customer, I don't know, I want to join the gym. What advice would you give me when I'm starting to look for a coach that I haven't met before? What should I be looking for?
Don't be fooled by their Instagram page, first thing. But I think that goes for all industries. Is like, fitness industry is very visual. So people want to blow up their Instagram page and be like 6-pack out and loads of followers, loads of likes. Don't be fooled by that. Like a lot of people who I think the best coaches aren't the ones that are flaunting themselves all over Instagram. The better coaches are ones that are talking about their customers on Instagram, for example. Better coaches, it's your initial interaction. Most gyms will allow you to come for a trial. Most gyms, or if you get in contact, you're a genuine lead, you're actually interested, or most coaches will offer some sort of either trial or consultation. And I think that's the only point you can gauge it, because someone could be like BS in their Instagram and making it look like they're authentic as hell, but they might not be. And likewise, someone may be really poor on social media just because they're not tech savvy, but they're a great coach, so you shouldn't judge that. Get your first interaction through either a trial or a consultation if it's a one-on-one coach? And then just how did they make you feel during that session? Did you believe that they had your best interest at heart? Did they care about what you were saying? Were they listening to you? Like, I've really enjoyed this because you've been asking really great questions and I can tell that you're listening. If you went to a PT and you were like, my goal is this, and like, okay, cool, and what time can you train? Versus you were like, oh, my goal is this, and you're like, okay, well, if your goal is that, then we'll probably want to look at doing this. How can you do that? And how did they make you feel? Do you have a good connection with that person? Do you believe that they have your best interest at heart? And you can get that from a group environment as well. If you have a trial at a group environment, was it just turn up, jump into class, or did they check, cool, have you got any injuries, what's your training experience, are you okay with this, bathrooms are over there, like, let me know if you need anything. If you feel comfortable in that environment, then give them a try.
And do you think, because what I think is also super interesting, so someone at your level as well, and people like even athletes who have all the experience and the ability to coach, they also have coaches, which I think is super interesting. Why is it? Do you have a coach yourself?
Not currently, but I have before many times.
What's the reason that a coach has a coach?
Everyone needs accountability, right? And there's what we we're talking about earlier with, like, if your goal is to lose 5 kg and the reason you want to lose 5 kg is to look better for your spouse, then you need someone to help you lose that 5 kg. If you're a coach, you might have the same training goal, or it might be like a business coach, for example. A lot of coaches that I know and respect have business mentors as well as fitness coaches as well. And there's always someone better than you. There's always someone that knows a little bit more than you, has 100%. A bit more experience. And it's just, we need that accountability as well. It's like, I've got a mentor and accountability coach that I have to submit business metrics to every week to make sure I'm doing my work on time. And that comes from, I sought this guy out because it comes from me wanting to get better at running my business. So I've got someone who's got a bit more experience in that field that can help me, guide me to working towards that, same way you would for a fitness coach.
Okay. That's actually, no, that makes a lot of sense. And something you've said a couple of times today, which I think is super important, is the accountability, man. It's that being accountable to yourself, but also, like you said, when you have a mentor or you have a coach, it just like doubles down on that, because you have those lazy days and stuff. And one thing, this is something that I've been thinking about, and I personally don't know the answer to, but maybe a coach can give me a bit of more of advice. You know how they say you should always listen to your body? You know what I mean? So let's say you didn't get a good sleep, you go into a gym, but you have like a really heavy workout that is planned to do, but you're not feeling it. So the question becomes, should you do it? But also, that kind of can play against you, because you'd be like, from waking up, you might be feeling a bit lazy. It's like, oh yeah, my body can't do it. Do you know what I mean? So how do you really understand when's like, I really can and like I really can't?
I'd say and again, it depends on who you are and what your goals are. If it's your career, like you're a professional athlete, you don't get to have days like that. You've got to train like 6 days a week. You have to, whether you feel like it or not.
Sure.
If there's not that much riding on it, it doesn't really matter if you miss a day of the gym. If you genuinely feel like you can't do it today, like I was supposed to train today, I'm pretty tired. I'm probably not going to train now. I mean, if it's really important to you, do something. If you have to, you feel guilty if you don't, go and do something easy. If you're not feeling it and it's not going to change your life too much, like missing one session is not going to do too much for you. So just skip it. I mean, if it's multiple days in a row, then question whether you're being lazy.
Exactly.
But then if you genuinely understand why am I going to the gym? Why am I paying for a gym membership? Why am I making myself go through all this pain of being sore from working out? That's a lot of sacrifice you've got to make. You better have a good reason why. And then if you wake up, you're like, well, I don't need to go to the gym again. And it's like, I have this reason why I want to go to the gym. It's like, I'm still pretty sore. And if that doesn't motivate you to get over it, and it's because you're generally tired versus being lazy, then you'd know pretty soon. And if it's like 3 days in a row, you're like, now I'm just being lazy.
No, that's true. I think that's a very, very good point. One thing that I think my biggest struggle has always been and still is nutrition. Now, I don't think personally I eat bad for the most part. On the weekends, there's slutty Saturdays, so we go out, we have like a nice little burger or like whatever. But during the week, I try to be pretty good. But I feel it's not good enough. You know what I mean? For what I want and what I'm trying to do. So how do you start, or what advice would you give either myself or other people when it comes to your nutrition? I know protein is super important, but getting that much protein that you need, because it's quite a lot. Like even with a shake, it's still a lot of protein that you kind of have to intake, right?
And I mean, everything I say now is just my opinion. I'm not a nutritionist, and B, there's so many different kind of views on what's right, what's wrong. But I think finding something that's sustainable is really important, because if you say, right, you have to eat this many grams of protein, just say to yourself, it's hard to hit that amount of protein. Or even just the act of counting and tracking your macros is, I've never done it and I refuse to do it just because I know it's never going to be sustainable to me. Whereas some people are about, you have to track. If you don't know what you're consuming, you're never going to be able to make progress, which I also agree with that side of it. So I think for me, it's important that you find a way of eating, whether it's a particular type of diet or a tracking method or something that is sustainable. Because if you're going to do it for 2 weeks and then stop doing it, what's the point in doing it for 2 weeks? You've got to find a method that works for you. I think most people blow out on the weekends too hard, and that's where they lose it, because you can be a saint for 5 days, and if your goal is to lean out a little bit, in the next 5 days you're going to eat to do that, and then for like 2 days you blow it on the weekend, your average intake for the week is going to be above what you needed to be anyway.
Exactly.
So there's a lot, like there's so many diets now. There's like keto and there's paleo and there's all these different ones, but then they all come down to basically just calorie deficits. If you're well, again, this is if you want to lean out. If you were trying to gain weight, you'd do the opposite, right? You'd go into a surplus. So I guess it just something that works. And you said it before, it's every individual is different. So what I would say would work for me probably won't work for everybody else. Like I know that if I, and the other thing as well is most people probably don't eat enough. And I think a lot of people, especially if you have a performance-based goal versus an aesthetic goal, is there's so many bodily functions that your body needs to do every day, that you need a certain amount of calories. Like your base intake of calories covers detoxification and brain function and organ function, all this basic stuff. That costs my body like whatever arbitrary number, like 1,500 calories a day just to do that. Then I've got to be awake for 16 hours and I've got to exercise. So I'm talking like 2,500 just to get through my day. It's actually really hard to eat that much.
Yeah.
So most people probably undereat, and if you're not ticking off all these bodily functions, you're never going to recover from change. So you're never going to make progress. So one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is not eating enough because they go too restrictive.
I see.
But again, I'm not a nutritionist. Don't come on that one.
No, that's fine. But it's actually super interesting that you said people eat too little. I always think because I can go a day like, okay, I haven't had much food today, and then like dinner I'll have a decent meal, but in my head I'm like, I don't know, I still feel like I ate too much, or maybe I'm eating too much of the wrong things, but I don't know. I think it's just a learning process.
The popular one at the moment is intermittent fasting. That's been around for a while, where people eat between a restricted time window. And again, it's the same thing. You're just restricting the amount of time you have to eat a day. Versus if I could eat all day, I'm going to eat more. But if I can only eat between 2 and 8 p.m., the chance I'm going to eat less.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And again,
I guess you live and learn, man. You live and learn. What are you going to do? When it comes to... I saw you did the Battle Fitness Festival, I think, a few years back. How was that experience? Because that's a competition, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that competition. It looked really like intense.
For that level of competition, so you've got the Dubai CrossFit Championship here, which is like the pinnacle of competition, one of the best competitions in the world. I've got a cool story about how that started if you want to hear.
Yeah, please.
But the Battle Fitness Festival is the biggest competition in the region for like the next tier down. So it's kind of like amateur level athletes. All right. So that's how we got a bunch of guys. And again, it's really fun. It's a team competition, and we had a really good representation from the gym the last time it was on and the time before. And so we had like 28 guys from our gym fly to Kuwait and give up their weekend to it. And these guys have full-time jobs. We're not professional athletes, so it was awesome to see those guys come up and fly our flag and go to Kuwait. And we do it. We love it. It's kind of like the highlight of our year. We love going there. We love doing the competition. It's run really well. It's organized really well. The workouts are always fun. It's always a good vibe when you go over there. And that's a team one. And it's more of I'm by no means a competitive athlete whatsoever. It's fun for me. Like I would rather spend time coaching people than working out. Working out is just kind of something I had to do with my people at my gym. Yeah. But it's a really cool opportunity for people to experience competition. We've got guys that had been training for just a couple of months and have never done a competition before and were still able to go and be on the floor with some really great athletes and have an amazing experience. And those guys do a really good job. Yeah. The Dubai CrossFit Championship story is, so I've been the head judge of that competition for the last 3 years. So I got to meet and judge some of the best athletes in the world at this event. And the guy it's become literally one of the most popular fitness events in the world because of Sheikh Majid putting so much effort into promoting it and funding it and doing a great job at pushing it, and the support from the local crew that run that event and organize that event has done wonders for CrossFit as a hobby and a sport in this country, and that's probably why it's grown so much here. And one of the guys who founded it, he said to me once, he used to be my coach years back, so we're talking like 10 years ago now. And he said to me one day, I remember we were on the beach training, and he's like, I've got an idea. I'm going to present it to the Sheikh. And at the time, he didn't know the Sheikh. He's like, I'm going to present this idea, and it's going to be an event that rivals the CrossFit Games, which is the ultimate CrossFit competition. And I was like, whatever, man. Like,
sure.
And then sure enough, like 4 years later, he met the Sheikh, he got introduced to him, he presented this idea, they started doing the events on the ice rink, and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And now it is one of the biggest CrossFit events in the world. So props to that guy.
Yeah, props to that guy. I love when people set a goal like it sounds audacious, and then you hit it and you're like, oh, okay, shit, he did it.
It's actually possible.
Yeah, it's actually possible. How's it being a judge on that? I feel must be so difficult, because everyone must be such a good in terms of technique, because you're looking at the top
Dude,
guys.
It's crazy.
So it's like must be minuscule little things.
And like head judging, it's fun. It's fun, but it's super stressful.
Yeah, I can
imagine.
So
when you're just judging, you're counting the guys. That's stressful, because you're like a lot of the guys that do CrossFit, say guys from my gym that go and offer to volunteer and judge. They'll be watching, and you just know the whole time, don't mess this up, because there's like mad money riding on it. If this guy trips, that's going to cost him like $10,000 or something. It's like crazy. So he's like, don't mess up, and that's really stressful. But then the whole weekend when I'm head judging is just like anxiety from start to finish, and then as soon as you finish, you're like, oh, we made it and nothing went horribly wrong, because it's just you're just waiting. I'm sure it's like with any event or any big event, is like you're just waiting for something to go on. You've got to put that fire out one at a time. Exactly. But it runs really smoothly, and everybody says, oh man, the event looked like it went really smoothly. I'm like, really? Because behind the scenes it was chaos. So
that's so funny. Yeah, I can imagine that being such a stressful experience.
Oh, dude.
Well, congrats for making it happen, man. Well done.
Yeah,
well done on you.
The team's strong, as I run a very small part of it, and I'm very lucky to be involved in it, and it's an amazing experience to be able to do that. But then there's like, I'm like the head of one team, there's another guy's the head of another team, another guy's head of a team, and it's just it's the same organizing team every year, and it's just become a very good team.
Yeah.
So they're not doing it this year because of COVID, so hopefully next year it comes back bigger.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully it does.
Man.
It does. I saw. I was speaking to Tarek earlier, and he told me you did this this breath work with a guy called Benoit something.
Yeah,
and he
lives right here.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
He's over the street from you.
No way. And he's the guy who teaches the Wim Hof method.
Correct.
Right. So how was?
Oh, dude.
So I've watched his like Wim Hof on like podcasts, and I've heard about thing, and in my mind, I listened to it, and I've seen like the success. I've seen so many videos of people, and it's worked. How was that experience like, for you? I feel it just changes your mind of what your body is capable of just by how you breathe.
Crazy. It was crazy. So my wife Emily, she got into the Wim Hof stuff, but she's all into like this kind of breathing work, movement and health. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take her. And it was kind of a surprise thing. I didn't realize it was 3 hours long. So I was like, look, I'm sorry, it's 3 hours long. If you don't want to get it, I understand. She's like, yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff to do. I won't make it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go because I want to meet the guy anyway. So I kind of set it up for her.
Okay.
But I'm going to go because the guy seemed super interesting. So I went, and he's just like this Swiss dude, just like super chilled, like doesn't really like make a big deal about being there. We're just in his garden over the street, literally in his villa. And he's like, oh yeah, should we do some like stuff? So we start breathing. And the two things that really hit me, and it's a 3-hour workshop. And this guy's amazing, I'm telling you. And the first thing we did is you exhale all of your breath. So you breathe out completely and you hold it for as long as you can. And I was like, I'm looking around the group and there's like 9 other people there. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, the people are pretty fit, but I know I work out, so I'm probably pretty good at this. I've probably got good like cardio. I can do this. I lasted like 20 seconds, then 19 seconds. I was the first one to like put my hand up. And he's like, put your hand up when you need a breath and I'll show you the time. So it was 19 seconds. I was the first one to stop. And all these other guys were like up to a minute. We go through a bunch of breathing drills for 15 minutes. We do the breath test again. I held my breath for 2.5 minutes.
What?
Yeah.
In 15 minutes?
Went from 20 seconds to 2.5 minutes.
That's incredible.
It was crazy.
Wow.
And you go through all these like Wim Hof breathing drills and all this mad stuff. And then you're like, your fingers are tingling and the guy's just like guiding you through it. It's like your hands might feel a bit numb. Your feet might be tingling. Your face is probably going you're a bit lightheaded. That's okay. Accept it. Da-da-da-da. I was like, wow. I was blown away. I could not believe it. The difference it made in 15 minutes. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then the next one was we did the ice bath. So we get in the ice bath and everyone, you're supposed to do 2 minutes on your first go. So did the 2 minutes and I got in this ice bath and I'm not good with cold water. I can't even take cold showers. I've lived here too long. It's just like, I'm not used to it. So I knew I was going to be terrible at it. So I get in the ice and I'm like, like panicking, breathing, hyperventilating. And he's like, look at me. Like he grabs my attention. For like 20 seconds, I was panicking. I was like, I have to get out. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
And I was anxious before going in. And he's like catching my attention. Like, look at me. He's like clicking. He makes eye contact and he stares you straight in the eye. He's like, hold your breath. And then breathe out. And he counts my breath out 10, 9. And by the time I get to 1, I breathe out. My body just relaxes. And he smiles because he knows I've made it. And he's like, concentrate. And then he just relaxes and smiles. And then you relax and you're like, okay, I can do this. And you sit there 2 minutes. He gets you out. And then you've got to go again. And this time when you go again, you can do it for as long as you like. Now, I was like, yeah, I don't want to go again.
Yeah.
Because it's freezing. And I got over it. The 2 minutes was okay. I got out and it took me like 10 minutes to warm up. And he's like, run around, do some like star jumps and stuff, like try and get your body warm. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this again.
Yeah.
So I got in and he's like, this time you'll be fine. You won't panic. It'll be easy. So I get in and no panic breaths this time.
Okay.
Calm down, get into a breathing pattern. And then he talks me through like so he does NLP. So nice. Maybe he was trying to distract me because he was like, where do you feel any pain? Like kind of like the ice, is it causing any pain? Like your fingers, your knees, your foot. I'm like, yeah, I feel something on my small toe on my left foot. He's like, okay. So he keeps talking to me. He's like, okay, take the pain and move it to the next toe across. Yeah, okay. Move the pain to the next toe across and move it. And now he just works his way through. He's like, and over the course like a minute, he's like, okay, move it up your shin, put it in your knee, and then let go of it. And I'm like, what the hell? And there was like no pain.
Really?
It completely went. And the pain wasn't like, he's like, do you have any injuries in your body? And I think the ice will like accentuate any pain you've got. So then afterwards I'm asking, I was like, man, that was crazy about the whole pain thing. He's just like, yeah, it was all in your head. I'm like, whoa.
Wow. Wow.
It was awesome.
That's crazy.
Absolutely awesome. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go back for sure.
Yeah. Do you think I feel that kind of, like, if you can develop that technique quite well, it can have such a huge impact on training as well. If you can control your breath in that way.
100%.
Do you think it'll help you push harder?
For sure. I mean, there's definitely going to be physiological, like, breathing adaptations you'll get from being able to cycle oxygen and expel CO2 quicker. So there's definitely going to be a cardio improvement for sure. But then I think even just having a better understanding of, we do some breath work like that in the gym. Like we'll make people go on like a stationary bike, for example, and you're only allowed to use nose to nose breathing, so you can't breathe through your mouth. And it feels like a little uncomfortable because just like there's almost that you can't breathe out of your mouth if you need to. But it's to do with controlling your nervous system and flipping between parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and using different parts of your brain. And Benoit explains it very well. He's talking about if, for example, you're in a high stress situation, the classic example is you're getting chased by a tiger, is you go into fight or flight mode and you start breathing really heavy and I've got to go and survive, versus if you're just calm and relaxed, you pull it through to the front of your brain. And he explains it way better than I just did. And it's just a state where you can relax. So then things like stress don't affect you as much, and being able to control your emotions and control your anxieties. And that's probably more of a powerful impact.
Wow. That sounds awesome,
dude,
man.
I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think I might have to check it out.
I went on Saturday morning, I just went, and then everyone I spoke to, literally told everyone I can, I'm like, you have to do it, you have to do it for sure. The guy's awesome.
I definitely will get the details from him after you for this, because that sounds super interesting. I think more than anything, I just like it just to change my perspective on what can I actually do. I think that's what I really like about this whole like concept and everything.
And there was an Emirati guy there and a younger guy, and he was very confident before. He's like, I'm going to do over 2 minutes, and he got in and he couldn't take it. And he was like, I can't. So he grabs him and he pushes him back in the water. And I'm like, you can't do that to locals, man. What are you doing? And then the guys, he pushes him in and he slaps him. He's like, look at me. And the guy's like, I can't, let me out. I can't. And the guy's fighting to get out, and he pushes him back down. And he's like, he slaps him and throws water in his face. He's like, look at me. And then the guy's like, no, I can't. He's like, breathe out. And he controls him. And then he's taken his hands off him. So the guy could get out, but the guy stays in the water. And he's like, look at me, breathe out. And again, do 2 more. And the guy was just sat there in the water. And this guy was panicking, like, I can't do this. I'm out. I can't do it. Yeah. And he stayed in there for 2 minutes.
Wow.
And so he's a life coach and he practices NLP, so I guess he read the guy and understood how far he could push him and whatnot, and read the situation very well. But to see, that was as interesting to see this guy freaking out and being able to go from like 30 seconds, I can't do this, to sitting there
and just chilling
for another minute and a half.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool. I definitely need to check that out.
And literally you can walk.
It's right there.
He's on Monara Street on the other side.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Craig, today has been amazing. I really love talking to you and enjoyed our conversation. Just got a last few questions for you.
For sure.
So one of them is what I'm curious about, and I think a lot of people could learn from what you think. What are the keys to building your fitness? Is it purely because when I think fitness, I think cardio. That's all I think about. But maybe I'm thinking about that wrong, because when you talked earlier, you talked about how fitness is a much more holistic thing, about nutrition, about sleep, about training. So what would you say are the basics or the key things for anyone to start building their fitness?
I think there's definitely it's everything, man. So you've got I think any good training program will involve some sort of cardio training, some sort of resistance training, so any type of body weight or weights training, and then movement practice. And what I mean by movement practice is just either mobility or flexibility work. So taking parts of endurance programs, of strength programs, and like a yoga program, and taking the parts of that are beneficial to each individual would probably make the best well-rounded approach to being what I would call fit. But I definitely think it depends on what the person's goal is. If you want to be, and I say fitness, I just mean working out. So if your goal is just to get insanely jacked and really strong, then fitness for you would probably not be loads of cardio work. So you probably do more weightlifting. But for me, it'd be make sure you've got some sort of endurance piece, some sort of strength piece, and some sort of movement or mobility piece in there.
Okay.
And I think for the most part, you'd be sweet.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and I definitely need to start incorporating the other things that you talked about, like definitely mobility and flexibility. I'm literally like a fucking rock. I have nothing. I can't move, can't do anything. So that definitely needs to add some of that stuff. And what's your vision for the future? What would you like to accomplish in the next 5 years? Is it with base, or what are your goals?
I want to take what we've created with base or similar to what we've created with base online. I think there's definitely, so when we opened base, we wanted to have 1,000 members, and that was an arbitrary goal. We just want to grow to be 1,000 people, and that was never for because that would make us so much money. It was always to have maximum reach.
Yeah.
And then you're limited unless you're online. And now it's so accessible to get online that I'm like, we need to get online because then we can reach more people. So we've started a program which we're kind of like betaing at the moment in the gym, which we want to take online, which is more of a competitive fitness, like more of a CrossFit program that I want to be my full-time gig. I want to be able to, in 5 years, be able to sit on a hill in New Zealand in my house and then just program for people online. And I'll always be in fitness. Even if I end up doing like corporate, which I could never imagine, I'd always have some tie to fitness.
Some fitness, yeah.
For sure.
It's just what you love, just what you're passionate about. No, that makes perfect sense. And why don't you tell everyone about the podcast as well? For guys who don't know, Craig also has a podcast. Yep. So tell us what the Base podcast is all about and what's your vision for it.
We're on 86, 87 episodes. We do an episode a week, and we have a health and fitness podcast. So we're basically just trying to have conversations with people in and out of the industry that can add value to our membership, ideally, which is the members of Base 3. And we want to grow that and turn that into something that has, again, a bigger reach. I want to impact as many people as I can, but I think if you cast the net too wide, you're going to be limited to how much of an impact you can have on a certain people. Yeah. So we want to grow the podcast, and we want to grow our online presence, and we want to grow Base, but we want to make sure that connection to people is always quality.
Yeah. So really targeted to the communities that you're reaching out to and the ones that you want to help influence and impact.
Yeah, for sure.
That totally makes sense, man. I wish you the best of luck with it.
Appreciate it.
Craig, this has been an amazing conversation, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for your time and for coming on the podcast. The question I always ask every guest at the end is, what is a message that you'd like the people to take home with them today?
Just look after yourself. Like, especially now when you look at what's happening with the world, is you just need to look after yourself. Like, do some sort of physical activity. Make sure you're eating well, what you consider well, and getting enough sleep. Like, you look after your body, and your body will look after you.
I love that.
That sounded so cheesy as I was saying. I was like, don't go there. But
no, I like that. Remember that. Craig, thanks so much for your time,
brother.
Man. I really appreciate it. Guys, to everyone, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. And as always, hope it helps. Peace.
That was a blast, man.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
That was really fun. I really, really enjoyed it.